From the 915 to H-Town, from the Panhandle Plains to the Valley, and everywhere in between, this is the 50/50 Podcast, powered by the 50/50 Podcast Network. Join me, Hector Cano, as we cover the Texas high school club and college soccer landscape, along with an inside look at the college soccer recruiting scene. The 50/50 Podcast is a platform about the people and for the people who are dedicated to the beautiful game. Here we go. It's another edition of Inside Texas High School Soccer, episode 11, the championship Saturday recap, review, wrap up, whatever we want to call that, along with our season finale. I am Coach Hector Cano, joined by Hollywood himself, Coach Rafa Castorena. Coach, what's going on, buddy?
Not much, just here, enjoying my Sunday.
Enjoying your Sunday. I know you're all about the Masters, man. I know you're watching the Masters. No Masters?
No. None of Masters, no, not today. No.
Yeah.
All I know is I'm pulling double duty today, so later on we'll have the fan cast to talk about last night's game.
So we are going to have the SAFC fan cast tonight?
It looks like it, hopefully at 8 p.m. I think it's leaning towards that.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Rafa for being here. So episode 11, can you believe another season in the books? Season 4, essentially in the books now. Great day. We got a loaded show. We're going to look at, obviously, we're going to look at yesterday's results, yesterday's 4 matches as we crowned 4 champions, both in 5A and 6A. So excited about that. But before we do that, we want to go ahead and bring on our next guest. He is no stranger to the 50/50 Podcast, an alum himself. He is the president of Tasco, as well as the head women's soccer coach of Katie Tompkins, Coach Jarrett Shipman. Coach, how are you?
Great, man. I really appreciate you guys having me on. How are you guys?
Oh, hey, we're much better now that you're here. You're going to give us all that knowledge, all that wisdom, right? You're going to dump it on us because God knows Rafa and I need it. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, man, doing great. It was a great state tournament weekend. Another successful one. Really excited to talk with you guys about it.
Absolutely. And let's dive right in, Coach. So talk to us. I know Wednesday through Saturday, but as you and I both know, there's so much more, just logistically planning everything, so many things that go into it. And it's different from the convention, right? Because the convention is strictly you all, right? Whereas the state, and I know it's more than just you all, but you all are calling all the shots there in the convention. State tournament is a little different, right? Because it also, obviously, UIL is running it, hosting it, but in collaboration with you all. And then, of course, the host organization there, which is Georgetown ISD. Lots of moving parts, lots of volunteers, so many aspects. Give us a little bit of insight as to how that unfolds leading up to it before you even arrive in Georgetown.
Oh, man. UIL put on a great tournament. Georgetown are a fantastic host. Us as Tasco organization, our job really at the tournament is help put together the all-tournament team, right? So we're there viewing every game, marking down who we think are the best players for that tournament, and we put together the all-tournament team at the end of the day. The media actually picks the tournament MVP, so the best player, and then we go through and help complete the rest of the 11 for that all tournament team. How it looks as a Tasco point is, we get up there on Wednesday. We go through, and I personally watched the 4A games and was in charge of the 4A games Wednesday morning. Went through, watched those, made notes, did everything we could to make sure we had the best people for the all-tournament team. We then have a board meeting, and then we have our, general meeting as well right after right before the 6A boys game for semifinal on Friday. And then, it's a lot of us just being there and supporting soccer. Georgetown, like I said, puts on an amazing event. We're really happy with them, and we're really happy with what the UIL does there as well. And we are very appreciative that they let us be involved in the process.
Great stuff. Rafa, any questions, any thoughts for Coach Shipman?
Coach, after this season, like what do you got? What are you looking forward to for the 2025 season? Or like when new things, new ideas you have planned for?
Man, for the convention, we're already starting on that. We've been having a lot of conversation already. For the convention, one thing we're going to try to roll out this year, which I think is going to be great, is stadium seating at the sessions. So anybody that's been to Tasco knows in Galveston, it's kind of been similar for the last couple of years, and you have seats on both sides. And Moody Gardens actually has the ability to bring in some stadium seating. So on one side, we're gonna have some stadium seating so everybody will be able to see a little better. Really excited about that. And we just want to continue to add to all the great things that we've done at the convention and just try to make them better and better every year. Really excited about some of the presenters that we're trying to get lined up. And it should be another great one coming forward this year. Chris Besner will be taking over as president for me after the All-Star game here in a little bit. And he's going to do a fantastic job. And we're just here to support and do everything we can for high school soccer.
And you mentioned about that, right? So you're kind of on the tail end, right, of your presidency here, if you will. Tell us what you have left, what you have remaining before your time is up.
Okay, so we have the All-Star game still coming up, and so we'll start naming the All-Star teams for seniors, right? So it's a senior All-Star game. And a plug here, reminder, you have to get your nominations in by midnight tonight for All-State, All-Region, for academic All-State, All-Region, and for players All-Region. So do that tonight so it makes everybody's life a lot easier, meet the deadline. But we'll start picking as regional representatives, and we'll get together our teams. We're going to have the All-Star game at Blossom again coming up here in May. We're trying to put together a situation here where we're going to have some college coaches come out and try to see some seniors who have not committed anywhere yet, try to get them noticed, because these are some of our best athletes in the state of Texas playing soccer here. And we want to make sure they're getting noticed. And we're really excited about the All-Star event coming up. And so that's really kind of the last thing as official president I have to do here. And I say run, it's the whole board. Everybody does such an amazing job. Can't do it without any of them. I'm just here, just kind of making sure everything's kind of running smoothly and stuff like that, but they're amazing. And so, really the All-Star game's the last event here. And then I'll be past president and I'll support Chris Besner in any way I can. The rest of the board, just kind of make sure we're, like I said, making sure we're making Texas high school soccer the best it possibly can be.
Absolutely. And we got a comment here from, I guess somebody from KD7 Lakes men's soccer wants to comment. This guy, what a president, amazing work for Tasco this year. So I'm sure somewhere in there, Jimmy Kruger's behind that, right?
Absolutely. And shout out to Jimmy Kruger. He just won a second in a row state championship, first 6A team to ever do that. But as a Tasco standpoint, we couldn't do anything we do without him either. He's amazing. He's the guy behind the scenes making everything work. So, pleasure to work with Jimmy, and I appreciate all the support he's given me this year.
Yeah, never heard of the guy. I have to meet him sometime. Never heard of him. So, now, congratulations to Coach for sure, no doubt. Making history on the 6A boys side on the 10-year anniversary of 6A, right, as a classification. So congratulations to him and his boys. Great match, and we'll talk more about that later. But so, Coach, you talked about, let's go back to Georgetown this week there at Birkelbach Field. You give us a breakdown of what your primary role is, the responsibility of board members there, but how did and you've been to plenty, obviously, what did you notice, kind of thoughts, trends, analysis from this year in terms of maybe on the field and off the field? What kind of trends did you notice about the state tournament this year in relation to years past?
Man, they did a really great job with it. On the field, there was some really great soccer. I really enjoyed watching everything from the 4A to the 6A level. Got to watch girls, boys, and there was some very quality soccer in there. I mean, especially the first game starting out, you had Salina versus Lumberton. Salina trying to go for what is number 3 in a row.
Number 3.
Amazing to watch. Lumberton gave him a good game, and then you backed it right into an overtime game with Bernie and Salado. So we started the state tournament off with a bang. Very competitive. There wasn't any major blowouts or anything like that. Everybody was playing hard, and I think a lot of the coaches, when they get there, they just are enjoying the fact that they're at state, and it's such a cool experience for those kids. And you're just there. We're all there for the kids, and it was very cool to see a lot of these kids succeed. Also, the ones that didn't make it into the final or lost the final, just the pure emotion and work ethic they put in to get there. And it's just awesome to experience. The whole tournament was fantastic. I enjoyed watching every game from 4A to 6A.
Great. Any feedback, thoughts in terms of what you all maybe was posed to UIL or Tasco in terms of just the event, certain things each day. I know the biggest thing was really probably what wind was probably the only issue, right? But any any feedback or things in terms of what you received back from the crowd, at local administrators, um, anything that you received there in terms of thoughts that you can present to UIL for maybe next year's version of the state
Yeah.
tournament?
Yeah, a couple thoughts. Starting out with, I felt like sometimes there were a few less coaches in the stands sometimes, and I was trying to figure out what that was. And I think some people were more streaming and stuff. But this is if you've never been to state as a coach, I highly implore you to get out there and go watch it, because it is so much better in person. The energy the crowds bring, Wakeland playing back to back and having their fans out there before the girls even got out there to start the game, cheering it on. It's just such a cool experience. So if you haven't been to a state tournament as a coach or even a fan or a player, come check it out. It is so cool and so fun to see. This UIL tournament was awesome. I'm sure everybody's heard the rumors, and we'll see what happens here. But I think it's being proposed to the UIL Legislative Board that they're going to go big school, small school next year. We'll see what happens with that. Still waiting on the UIL to try to make the determination where they're going with that.
Yeah.
As a TASCO board, that's really in the UIL hands. So we're just here to support them in any way we can.
That's great stuff. It's awesome I know obviously there's going to be mixed opinions about that, but it'll be interesting to see what unfolds, obviously. And we appreciate you sharing that, Coach. Now, one of the things that it tends to come up, or it's come up at least the last few years, is one thought, given the current format, right, is 4A maybe being able to showcase in the evening, right? And I know, I get it. UIL ultimately calls the shots in terms of schedule, but how much in terms of discussion has there been made on that, as far as maybe the 4A girls being able to play the nightcap, the final on on Thursday night, same thing for the boys on Friday night? How much has that ever really been up for discussion?
It's been talked about a few times, and as a TASCO board member and stuff like that, we just tell the UIL, it's like, hey, we're open to support you any way you want to go about this. We'll get information from our members, etc. But like you said, at the end of the day, it's really a UIL decision, and we're just here to support them.
Right.
The conversation has been broached, and the UIL takes the information we give them, and whatever they decide, we back them 100%. So that's where we're at with that.
Yeah, I get it. It's kind of one of those things where I'm asking it, but it's also not tongue in cheek, but it's kind of one of those. I know you're limited in terms of what you can do, but I guess it's just a matter of has that question and has that discussion really been made? Because the only other one I can think of is flipping the boys and girls finals, right? As well. That's been the only other one, as far as particularly on Saturday, right? We're talking about Saturday here on Championship Saturday. Rafa, you got any other questions, any other thoughts for Coach?
Yeah, Coach, as far as just with upcoming like realignment, newer team, and especially like you mentioned about the D1, D2, any possibility maybe creating a new classification? Is that being discussed? Or as far as new teams coming in, what's TASCO's role as far as helping out, especially starting like new programs starting out?
Yeah, it's the same thing, with the D1, D2. Backtracking just a little bit, if we do move to that, I'm sure the state tournament and regional tournaments, everything looks different going forward, because that changes a lot of things.
Right.
And so, the UIL has a great relationship with us, and they ask us what we think about stuff, and we give them our thoughts as a board and as a soccer community, because it's not just what the TASCO board wants, it's about what the whole soccer community wants. And we're elected to serve the people, and that's what we want to do. As far as classifications going forward, those discussions are always happening. They're always looking at how can we make it better. And, they talk about it and they say we have to get to this point, and they're always looking at it, and the UIL is fantastic at trying to do what is best for kids at all times. And so again, not to overstate it, but like as a TASCO member and a TASCO board member and as acting president, it's just we're here to support the UIL, and we're very thankful that they actually ask us questions and listen to what we have to say, because they're amazing at doing that. So we appreciate all of them over there.
Yeah, no doubt. And one thing, Coach, as we start to wrap up here, I want to personally thank you for your time in terms of what you've given your time there in Tasco, because it's a rotation, right? Before you become president, and then of course past president, as you mentioned. But what you've been able to do in support of Texas high school soccer, what you've been able to do for our sport, in support of coaches, in support our partnership, our relationship with the podcast, inviting us to to the Tasco convention there in Moody Gardens in Galveston. We really appreciate it. I've personally loved it. I've grown quite a bit, been able to form some great relationships and partnerships, and learn a lot more to see it from the perspective of what you're talking about in terms of what Tasco really does behind the scenes. So just wanted to share, really appreciate you. Really appreciate you being here today too. You just got back from Georgetown, and then here you are with us, right? So really appreciate that as well. But one more thing before we let you go, tell us, for some of our listeners, I should say, supporters, in terms of they don't know that much about Tasco, or they're not sure, they're considering membership. Tell us a little bit more as to why they need to join.
Man, Tasco, what we do is we want to support the high school athlete, right? We want to support the Texas high school soccer athlete. You've mentioned the convention in the past. The convention is kind of like our Super Bowl. We get down there and we're trying to educate coaches, and we try to have information for the brand new coach all the way up to the guy that's been doing it for 40 years. We want to make better coaches, which in turns helps make better student athletes. We want to support our whole soccer community. Tasco has a really good job. We've done a really good job of supporting people with our goal of the month and stuff like that. If y'all haven't seen that Duncanville goal by now, man, that was something in the regional final. We also do our all-state nominations. So we recognize student athletes. We also have our all-star game, like we talked about. And we just want to make sure we are advocating for Texas high school soccer. That's our role. We're very appreciative for the people that have elected to this role, because we couldn't do what we do without every single one of those members. Even, just everything that the support we get. Your podcast is amazing. I want to tell you thank you, because you bring a lot of information to high school soccer, get it out there. We just appreciate the high school soccer community in general.
Great stuff, man. I really appreciate you. Thank you for all of that. Thank you for the kind words and just what you've done more specifically. Looking forward to being able to speak to you more. Now, the All-Star game that'll be coming up next month. What details, dates? I know it's here in San Antonio at the Blossom Athletic Center, but what can you share as far as that goes? You hit a little bit on the information, but just dates, coaches. I know they're listening. What can they do?
So it'll be May 11th at Blossom Athletic Center. We'll have Region 1 girls versus Region 2 girls at 12 p.m. Same thing with the boys for Region 1, Region 2 at 12. It's really great there because they have the two grass fields right next to each other. Pretty cool experience. And we'll follow that up with Region 3 girls and boys versus Region 4 girls and boys at 2 p.m. So what we're going to be doing here is our regional directors are going to be reaching out to members as soon as we finish the all-state voting, and we're going to start reaching out to seniors and start assembling the teams, trying to put the best products we can out on the field, and trying to get some recognition of these student athletes that have worked really hard. Most of them since they were probably 4 or 3 years old playing soccer. We hope to have a lot of college coaches out there to view some of our unsigned seniors, and hopefully it's just a great success. It will be. I'm pretty excited going forward for it.
Awesome stuff. And again, that is May 11th here in San Antonio, Blossom Athletic Center fields there. Looking forward to that one. It's always a great opportunity. And we'd definitely love to see if we can help in any way in terms of getting the word out to college coaches. Coach, don't hesitate to let us know. Here to help.
Absolutely.
And before we let you go, any kind of our little mini stoppage time, give you an opportunity for final thoughts. Anything you want to share as it relates to the game? Anything maybe from this past weekend? The floor is yours, Coach.
Man, I love where high school soccer is going right now. We're getting so much support online through your podcast, stuff like that. I appreciate you having me on. It was a great season. There was some great soccer. I thought it was pretty cool. We had 3 teams at the state tournament, boys and girls. Coach Guest was a Tasco board member forever. He won his second title with Midlothian, their first title at Midlothian. It was just an awesome weekend. Prosper with their first title, Frisco Wakeland girls with their 4th title. Just very awesome stuff. Every single person out there battled, played amazing. super, super proud to be able to, you guys let me be president and get to be involved with all of this. It's amazing. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
It's awesome. Last question I got for you. Biggest surprise from this weekend?
Oh man.
It could be logistically, it could be on the field, it could be anything. What was the biggest surprise this year?
Man, I'll honestly say I didn't know much about Coach Guess's their Midlothian team, and watching them play, they had some awesome kids, man, at the 5A level, and they grinded and they fought. And then just watching that keeper for Midlow punt the ball almost to the other goal several times in that championship game was pretty cool to see as well. So, man, he was pounding that thing.
Great stuff. Great stuff. He is Coach Jarrett Shipman, the current president of Tasco, as well as the head women's soccer coach of Katie Tompkins. Coach, appreciate you. Congratulations on your season for you and your girls as well. And look forward to being in touch soon. And thank you again for joining us.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys.
Take care, Coach. Have a good one.
You too.
Great stuff. Thank you to Coach Shipman again for joining us. I know he's man, it's a lot leading up to that, and then here he is with us again on a day that's really reserved for his family. So really appreciate him and his family. So thank you again, Coach Shipman. Thoughts on what he shared, Coach?
Like I said, being the Tasco president, it does have a lot of responsibility, but he's shown all the great things he's done, and also, like I said, his final preparation of the senior game coming up in May. Mm-hmm. But he's done great work, and whoever follows him, I'm sure they're going to, some big shoes to fill there, but I'm sure they're going to do a great job. And him being the past president is going to be able to kind of guide that person through for the next season.
And I know he downplays a lot of what he does in his role, but that's kind of him too, humble guy, and that's why he's so easy to like. And you find that with a lot of the board members that I've had the opportunity to really meet in Tasco too. It's really good people, really good coaches who are trying to push our sport, our game forward here at the high school level. So I think I really like what he said in terms of liking where our game is headed. Yeah, there's things to obviously work on, but that's everywhere. That's grass isn't greener anywhere. Just focus on watering the grass where you are, right? So again, thanks to Coach Shipman. Really appreciate his time. And so we're going to dive in. We're going to look at the day that was yesterday. While I bring this up, Coach, we're going to look over kind of an overview of what was on the schedule yesterday. But tell us initial thoughts going into yesterday versus how it played out, because we're obviously going to discuss all of these thoughts on how it going into it, what you were thinking, Coach, after our show on Friday night. What were your thoughts?
These, like I mentioned, these were going to be 4 very competitive games, very great established programs, some seeking a first ever, state title, some trying to repeat, and some have history, what they've done, but it was going to be exciting, it was going to be a barn burner of a Saturday, there wasn't going to be any kind of letdowns and so forth. A few surprises. I know there were some favorites going in. There was a couple of surprises, and but I think from beginning to end, and the way it finished, like the last game, how it finished, it pretty much was the cherry on top of all the games this weekend in Georgetown.
Yeah. So we set up the schedule again, just a refresher for everybody. We had 4 matches yesterday, crowned 4 champions. First one was, we started with 5A, first with the girls, Colleyville Heritage versus Frisco Wakeland. Then the 5A boys, Frisco Wakeland versus Midlothian. And then again, Frisco Wakeland being the only of the 3. We had 3 schools there that arrived in Georgetown, whose both their boys and girls squads were there trying to vie for a state title. Frisco Wakeland is the only one that was fortunate enough to break through and have both their teams compete for a state title yesterday. And then in the evening, we moved over to 6A, starting with the girls in Westlake versus Prosper, followed by our nightcap, which was defending state champion Katy Seven Lakes versus Flower Mound. So we go to our first one here, Coach. Colleyville Heritage, Frisco Wakeland, and what was a wild game, right? Frisco Wakeland jumps out to a big lead. Colleyville Heritage, which, as expected, right, great team, come roaring back with two really late goals to make it a very fun match. Final score: Frisco Wakeland 3, Colleyville Heritage 2. And for Wakeland, we had Audrey Gilbert with 2 goals, along with Ana Carrera with 1 goal. Audrey Gilbert being the MVP, and then Addison Shimmick with 2 goals for Colleyville Heritage. That really made it an interesting, exciting game late in the match. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
Yeah, going into this one, Colleyville Heritage had a great game prior to that. Wakeland had to survive their semifinal against Leona Rouse, and people thought maybe Heritage is going to have a step up, but Wakeland knew what the task at hand, and they jumped on early, and I think they kind of knew that they had to set the tone, dictate, get a lead, and if they knew they get a lead, they can pretty much if they can hold on to it and get that title, and sure enough, they built that big lead. But you got to give it a Colleyville Heritage. So I mean, they could have just wrapped it up. This could have turned into a rout, but they fought back, and they made things pretty interesting. But hats off to Wakeland, and that for their fourth straight title, for their fourth title, and for their program. I know the boys gets the have been getting the accolades the last few years, but I think the Wakeland girls are starting to now really establish themselves in the Metroplex area and also in the state of Texas.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely, just phenomenal, 2 powerhouses, right? And we knew when Wakeland was up the way they were, you just knew this one wasn't over, right? You knew that. But congratulations to Colleyville Heritage on a fabulous season and a year in which that has been years in the making. They break through, they're in the state final, and I have a feeling we're going to hear from this group again for sure. So congratulations to them, and congratulations to the Lady Wolverines Frisco Wakeland on their 4th state title. We move over to the second match of the day, 5A boys final, which was a very entertaining, wide open game, right? And Midlothian brought it, right? We had been touting Wakeland quite a bit in terms of just being El Cucuy and what they do, but Midlothian played them, I don't know, perfect, I guess, for lack of better words, and just kind of managed to keep them off balance just enough. They take the lead there in the second half. And this was the only match, believe it or not, of the 4 yesterday where it was not 0-0. It was 0-0 at halftime. This was the only one with the score being 1-1 at the half. Thomas Hayes gets the goal for Wakeland. If I got that right, I'm not sure if I got that name right, but Aiden Hildreth and Landon Exley, or Aiden Hildreth had the first goal, what would be the game-winning goal, and Landon Exley has the game that really sealed it late to make it 3-1, with Aiden Hildreth being named the MVP for this. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
Yeah, with the reputation that Wakeland's had the last few years, this is their 9th appearance in the state tournament, and I think a lot of people thought, hey, this team, what they did against Leander Glenn is like, these guys have to be the favorites, but Midlothian knew what the task was, and they knew that they had to play pretty much close to a perfect game to pull this off, and they did. They bounced back. They didn't panic. A lot of the teams, if they're down 1-0 against Wakeland, they're probably fold. And things would kind of go bad from there. Midlothian, they responded right back quick, and then they got that that second goal, and then they finally decided, hey, we need to seal the deal, and they got that third goal to pretty much to get the championship. And hats off to them, winning their first state title. They had to beat some really good teams, to get to this point, and they beat one of the biggest, like I said, to beat one of the biggest programs in the state of Texas, and for the state title. It says a lot about this team, and hats off to them. They've really earned this, and we'll see how they do next year. Like I said, I'm sure they're looking forward to maybe try to repeat that effort again.
Yeah, and congratulations to Frisco Wakeland on another great season in a year where many people did not have them here. In a year where many people did not expect them or predict them, but they're they're Wakeland, right? They're that consistent, and yeah, they still found themselves in another state final. And you know, I don't know what it is with Frisco Wakeland. The only teams that have been able to upend them in a final have been Region One teams. So Midlothian yesterday, and then of course back in 2019, El Paso Bel Air. But congratulations to Wakeland, to the Wolverines, on a great season. And congratulations to Midlothian on their first state title. And as Coach Shipman mentioned earlier, Coach Guest's second state title as well. And they bring one home for Region 1. So congratulations to Midlothian. And we move on, though. We shift over to 6A, right? Our final pair of matches on the day in the season. Westlake versus Prosper, a Westlake squad that had by many accounts were not expected, also not expected to be there, overachieving just doing incredible right along the way. And Prosper, a team that had been building to this and just had proven themselves throughout the year. Strong district, obviously, both of these squads. And Westlake, a third place team within their district, and they just kept proving people wrong round by round by round. Here they are. They find themselves in a final. And as we had mentioned, right, as I had mentioned, that the longer this game stayed tied at 0, right, that pressure would mount on Prosper. And Prosper gets the only goal goes to Olivia Hess, who we had already previously discussed with Coach Sazo on another episode. Olivia Hess gets the game-winning goal with about 26 minutes, I think, left in regulation, and she's also named the MVP. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
Yeah, for Prosper, like I said, their backs were, pretty much they were the clear favorite. They had to finish the job, and so the pressure was on them. And that's a scary thing because with Westlake, like I said, you mentioned Westlake hasn't been talked about, and for them to finish in their tough district, third and go to this far, this is a very dangerous team. And like I said, we got to see them a couple of weeks ago when we saw what they can do. So like I mentioned, Prosper knew what they had to do, and they found a way. They had struggles with the offense. They did get 3 goals in that that semifinal game, but knowing this one, maybe one goal was not going to be enough, but it turned out to be enough. I guess their defense, was able to stop Westlake kind of building any momentum. Westlake early on was, kind of dictating the game, and they came close. And I think had Westlake gone to goal, I think things could have been different here. And it's hats off, like I said, to Prosper. They just found a way. The family got the goal in that 26th minute and able to hold on. And now, after years of all this disappointment, because we've had them pretty high the last few years,
Right.
Thinking going deep, really deep in the playoffs. They've had some first round defeats. I think I think it was worth the wait. And finally, that kind of the heaviness off their shoulders, off their back, and now they finally get to bring back the trophy over there to their campus.
Yeah. And congratulations to Westlake on a phenomenal season. As the Lady Chaps they come up short, but they should be very proud of how they played because they definitely tested Prosper. You did get the feeling that if Prosper just got one, it could be potentially all she wrote, right, with that defense, because this is a defense that is probably on the women's side, regardless of classification, might have been playing the best, right? Might have just in best form, not just simply looking at how many goals they hadn't allowed, but how they had been playing, right? The kind of form that they were in. Last goal they allowed was back in, I believe it was, what was it, the regional tournament semifinal, I think, versus South Lake Carroll. Might have been the last goal they let in. So congratulations to Prosper. They win their first state title. And this one was, from my perspective, this one was a tough one because I found myself kind of rooting for both of them for different reasons. Westlake, just because that, yes, it's Westlake, but they were still an underdog, right? The name, how they played with what they're known for was very different. And then Prosper, just from the years of frustration and breaking through this year and seeing them go on that run. So I was happy to see that for them as well. So congratulations to Prosper. They are your 6A girls state champions. And we go to the nightcap, our final, what was our final match of the 2023-2024 season. Katy Seven Lakes and Flower Mound, the defending state champions, and Katy Seven Lakes versus a very good Flower Mound squad that was obviously they're very good. They're here, but returning for the first time to the state title match since when they won it all in 2019. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
Yeah, I think this one's probably was the game of the night because it was just a fast-paced, fast action. The storylines goes, Seven Lakes trying to be the first team in 6A to repeat. Flower Mound trying to get their first title back in about 5 years. Back and forth match. The traded goals. This went into extra time. We had a feeling that this would go to extra time, but it came down to a free kick, and they were able to get that goal in, and just 2 minutes before the end of the game, and Seven Lakes was able to hold on, and they're taking the trophy back. They get to keep the trophy there back at Seven Lakes, and hats off to Coach Kruger. He's done a remarkable job. With this team. He lost a lot of great players last year, but they're able to kind of reload and make that gauntlet too. And they like I said, towards the end of their regular season, they had a loss. They had a couple of ties, and there was some little doubt there. So hey, are they going to be able to do this? And then I think the key for them was that win against Jordan on those PKs, and I think that kind of solidified them. Hey, we got this. We're gonna finish this, and but to beat a great Flower Mound team, who's they've had a great season too. It was I said, this just like I said, this really was the cherry on top as far as the whole weekend, and props to both teams, just for giving us an exciting match.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations, both squads. Yes, it was the perfect. Again, this was another match that was 0-0 at the half, ends to overtime. So there's no better way than seeing a super exciting, tight match, playing for it all, 6A boys state final, and it gives us overtime, right? And Noah Stasik had the first one for Katy Seven Lakes. Flower Mound comes back by my man Landon. I'm going to butcher your last name, but Delao. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but he had the goal for Flower Mound to tie it up, and then in overtime you have MVP Aiden Morrison, Gatorade reigning Gatorade Player of the Year, scores on what was I think a 35-yard free kick, and direct kick, I should say, not free kick, and he gives us the game-winning goal, and it was just he placed it in the perfect spot where Flower Mound goalkeeper, who had been having fun, both goalkeepers, right? Because we talk about Ben Aviles for Katy Seven Lakes, who had just there was a couple opportunities where late in regulation, Flower Mound was surging, right? They had Katy Seven Lakes. They're kind of a little on their back heels, but Katy Seven Lakes regroups. That's what great squads do. It was no secret how big I was on this Katy Seven Lakes squad from the start of the year. I know I gave you, Rafa, grief a few times in the RPI, right? But yeah, I think, and it was because I viewed this group as a group that, no disrespect to any opponent, but they, Noah Stasik mentioned it in a post-match interview after the state semifinal, that they were trying to find new motivation to keep focused. And they're that talented, taking nothing away from Flower Mound, who played with them every bit toe to toe. But Katy Seven Lakes figures it out. Aiden Morrison, MVP, figures it out. And it's kind of that old adage of big players make big time plays in big time games, and that was the difference. As congratulations, Flower Mound, as they are your 6A boys runner up, and Katy Seven Lakes, the Spartans, repeat as your 6A boys state champions and become the first boys squad at the 6A classification to repeat as well, making some history there. So congratulations to Katy Seven Lakes. They are your 2023-2024 6A boys state champions. And that does it. That does it in terms of our look back at the day that was yesterday, Championship Saturday there at Birkelbach Field in Georgetown. You look back on it, Coach, by the end of the night, and then this morning, more stuff is going out there. We're seeing more video clips, get to see a little bit more behind the scenes. What are your thoughts when you looked at all of this, or particularly specifically yesterday? Not, we'll talk about the entire state tournament, the entire
Mhm.
event later, but what were your thoughts about yesterday, start to end?
You know you were going to be part of an action-packed Saturday. I mean, just look the teams that we had on there is just pure quality, and you had a pair of teams from the same high school that were going to try to do maybe the double. It ended up being
Right.
split, but and you had like I said, you had a school that made history, winning back to back, and winning one's tough, but to go back again and like the players mentioned, to find that motivation to, sometimes some teams are just satisfied winning one, but they found some type of phone motivation. Hey, let's do this. Let's get it to. It's tough. I'm sure Coach would probably say it's tough to win a second one, two in a row. Because everyone's after you throughout the whole season. And then also other programs, like I said, like we mentioned, but with Prosper, just I think they really now have something to be proud of that program. And I think that was the missing piece of their program, is not having that state championship, like compared to like Salt Lake Carroll, Marcus, especially in the girls there in the Metroplex area. That was the missing that was the missing piece for them, and now they have it, and who knows from there. That's when you get that really establishes your programs.
Right.
Getting that state championship really does a lot. Attracts more players and so forth that want to be part of it, and it just it motivates even more for you to obtain more, to get more. So, but overall, like I said, also seeing the the fan base out there. Like I said, I saw pictures of the crowds to be there. That was great to see. Normally, like I said, football gets kind of the the fan base there to go this, but to see kind of those big crowds there to cheer on their teams. That says a lot, and hopefully that grows even more, because we do, like I said, if we can fill up those both ends of the stadiums, that'd be great. We love to see that, and this is a start from this, and hopefully next year will be a lot better too.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, from that perspective, from the KD7 Lakes perspective, right, and Coach Kruger, it's just, I had a conversation with him, and I just told him, it's like, one of the, and I mentioned it here as well, that one of the hardest jobs you can often have is when you have a very strong, loaded, highly talented team, is just keeping them eye on the prize, right? Keeping them focused. Because sometimes they can be so dominant that, for lack of better words, just trying to keep them focused, trying to keep them on track. But, as he mentioned, to his credit and to the credit of MVP Aiden Morrison, he just said, it's like, hey, it's really easy. It's really easy when we have a leader like Aiden Morrison, right? And everyone just falls in line, follows, because he's just that special of a human being first, before you even start talking about him, the player. So congratulations to everybody that made it there. Obviously, just to make it to Georgetown says something, and you have to cherish it, because sometimes you arrive as, maybe you get lucky enough and you're a freshman or maybe a sophomore, and you think that, okay, this is how it's going to be. We're going to come back every year. And that's not the case. There's just so much talent, so many talented programs in the state of Texas, so many great quality coaches, and nothing is guaranteed in terms of you arriving there. And then, of course, when you arrive, particularly as a senior, and if you're fortunate enough to win it all, you cherish the moment, right? You cherish the moment for sure. So, all right, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We're going to take a look at our regional breakdown at state. We're going to look at the regions as to how it all unfolded, overall records there, and then we will wrap up with our look at kind of our season finale. We'll discuss some questions and thoughts on the season, and then we will wrap up and get out of here. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a quick word from our partners. Looking to step up your social media marketing game? Well, let us tell you about our great friends at Gipper. Gipper is a way that schools, athletic departments, ADs, and coaches create world-class marketing content. Join over 4,000 coaches, ADs, SIDs, and club directors who use Gipper to create high-quality visual branded graphics for your program. The best part? Anyone can do it in seconds on any device without needing any design experience whatsoever. If you do have significant design experience, you're going to love this as well, as you are what they call the power user, and this is designed with you in mind as well. And just for being a listener and supporter of the 50/50 podcast, you can receive savings immediately and save 10% off any first-time Gipper purchase. Simply visit gipper.com/partner/5050 to learn more. Again, that's gipper.com/partner/5050. And then there are our great friends at Global Scarves. Both Bill and Kyle, they are the top providers of custom knitted scarves, beanies, and other fan merchandise in the U.S. All merch is fully custom with free design services and free shipping on all orders. They do so much more, guys, than just scarves. Blankets, beanies, you name it. It's all designed and all customized to your specifications and needs. You can contact them at info@globalscarves.com to get any free designs or quotes built out for your school, club, or maybe even a supporters group. Simply mention the podcast or use the code #5050pod and they will be sure to take care of it. All right, and we are back. It is the episode 11 Championship Saturday recap along with our season finale. We're going to go ahead, Coach. The next one we had just mentioned, we're going to go ahead and look at our season, or not our season, I should say, but our regional breakdown at state, how that unfolded a little bit more. So here's how it looked. Here's how it breaks down. So we looked at region by region and essentially calculate head to head how they played at state. These are all strictly from Birkelbach there, and this is combined both boys and girls programs. So Region 1 going overall 6-3 with 3 state titles. Region 2 overall 4-3, 2 state titles. Region 3 goes overall record of 2 wins, 3 losses with 1 title, and then Region 4 overall 2-5 with no titles. Thoughts on this one as you look at it as a whole, Coach?
It's been the same story the last few years. The Metroplex is still dominating. You know, they got 5 state titles. If you combine Region 1 and 2, because it does, like I said, part of the Dallas area does come in Region 2. You know, they're 10-6. Well, the other 2 regions are 4-8. And just 1. So has that gap been closed? It hasn't yet. Maybe hopefully in the next few years it does balance out. I know the teams in Region 3, Region 4 are trying their best to get there. But as you can see, especially Region 1, Region 1's has been the dominant one, and but things do run in cycles, and in the past we've had Region 3 dominate, or we had Region 4. So, but it just shows you, like, right now, as far as whether not to say the very competitive teams, but very, like it's a lot of the very kind of more of the established programs are, like I said, aren't in that region, and that's to come out of that region. Region 1 says a lot, and to win a title too says a lot. But that's why you're seeing all these teams from Region 3, Region 4 play early up there in that area early in the season, just to get the feel of it. Just to see the the speed of the game, the playing different styles over there. But it's sooner or later, like I mentioned, that gap's gonna close.
When you looked at the results right from this year, region by region, well, not so much region by region, but when you're just looking at them and you're piecing together certain pieces from each region, what stood out to you? Was there anything that beyond these numbers here that stood out to you that were maybe different, surprising, something, just something new? Did anything from the results, not just the final scores, but maybe how the games played out, did anything as it relates to the regions surprise you this year?
A lot of the games are they're more competitive. You didn't see many blowouts. Maybe you had 1 or 2, maybe 3 plus 3. I think maybe with the Colleyville versus Pflugerville Hendrickson game was a 4-1, but that was still a competitive game.
Right.
You didn't see something like last year what Salina did to Stephenville, like that 9-0, kind of that blowout win. These are very evenly matched games. There were 1-goal games or 2-goal games, or they didn't, like some teams had to add a late goal just to kind of finish off a team, like kind of what Midlothian did, they were, because that game was still competitive. So, I think you're starting to see the trend that it's getting a little bit more difficult, and not a lot of goals are being scored. I think defenses are getting better, and that the thing that goes back to the coaching. And I think coaches are seeing how defense is very important. And if you can win a 1-0 game like when Prosper did in the final, one goal will go a long way, and it did for them for quite a few of the games they played. To get to this point and end up winning a championship.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there's different schools of thought. There's different arguments on that in terms of how much our defenses, I've seen it, and we've been part of some of those conversations as well, as to how much of it is, defenses getting better, more organized, which I believe in. And then how much of it is, maybe collectively as a whole, whether it's just locally across the state, across the nation, where we're struggling to develop more scorers, right? More finishers, right? What are your thoughts on that? Because I have my kind of personal thoughts on that, but they're kind of in between, a little both in terms of player development. But I do believe that we have just much more better hard-nosed defenders individually and group defending that are just, and they pride themselves on that. And I've always viewed, so many people I think view defenders as, it's not that hard to do. And the famous quote that comes to mind with that is one from one of my former mentors of, scoring is the hardest thing to do in this game. Defending is the hardest thing to want to do in this game. So it's kind of somewhere in between both of those. Thoughts on that, Coach?
Yeah, I know. There was like a comment made a while back I saw about there's not enough number 9s, and you don't have those kind of like those leading scorers that have like ridiculous 30-40 goal seasons and stuff. I think what's turning out to this, like, players are learning to. I think teams are learning how to be more balanced, and I think teams are starting to understand. Defense is important, but also having a balance when it comes to scoring. If you have multiple scores, and that's something I kind of preached when I coached, especially like I said when I coached one of the last club teams. We had a fair balance of goal scorers on that team, and that way it wouldn't be one player wouldn't be marked. And if you notice in kind of these games, some of these teams couldn't really mark they weren't really marking that one player, because now it's become more of it's a collective. You have defenders that can score, from set pieces, and so forth. And but that goes back to player development. They're becoming more better players, not only offensively, but also defensively. But you don't have to rely on someone to score 30-40 goals in the season just to go deep. If there's a great balance of, scoring, it's going to keep your, it's going to make things very difficult for the opposing teams to kind of game plan against you. And, I think I think we're seeing that a lot more, but even some of the pro levels too, you're not seeing too much of those dominating school scores. So you have a few, but I think more coaches see it. Having a balanced team when it comes to scoring goes a long way, but also playing defensive wise, you're able to game plan and win close, like those 1-0 games or the 2-1 games and so forth.
Well, and there is something to be said, right, about given the format, the regional tournament format, the state tournament format, it is tough to, as a forward, as an attacking midfielder, as a winger, when you're a scorer, when you're a finisher, it is tougher given this format when you got to go back-to-back games or such short turnaround, playing on the turf, in many cases playing in the heat or playing in some sort of elements, right? It is what it is. It's the outdoor game. But so many of these players have played, so they've been playing for a long time. So I get it. They can adjust, but there's an added level of just heightened pressure, heightened intensity when you're talking about playing at this level with all eyes on you in turn, whether it's the state semifinal and especially the state final, right? So you are kind of operating on a certain level of what's the word? I guess adrenaline, if you will. But also it takes that creativity piece that's needed to finish when a defender is right on you and is meeting that intensity level, that adrenaline as well. it's tough. It's tough in this format, in this situation, when you're talking about playing a second match, potentially a state final, within 24 hours of having played a state semifinal, or within about 36 to 48 hours. So it's tough, and I think that that is kind of a little, not a hidden element, but maybe a piece, a variable that has a much bigger role here than I think a lot of people think here when you get to Georgetown. Any thoughts on that? Any additional stuff on that?
Yeah, yeah, and if you're seeing, like I said, some of the players, like I said, that you're seeing, they have, like I said, play different positions. They're not just focused on one; they can play other ways. So they can hurt you in other ways, as far as organizing, passing the ball, and so forth. And but I think also when the coaching goes to this is like, teams are becoming better prepared as far as with scouting. Scouting players, how to prepare. Okay, how do we defend this? How do we get them out of the game? If you can take this person out of the game, how is that other team going to react? Who else is going to step up? And that's why maybe you're seeing less and less of those come to this level. If you come in with I think coming here with balanced teams is going to make a difference, because if one player could have, one of your best players could have a bad game, but someone else can step it up and rise to the occasion. And that's what you kind of want, that balance. And you're, like I said, you're seeing it with a lot of these teams, at this level.
Yeah, no doubt. And that'll do it for our regional breakdown at state. Again, congratulations to all. Obviously, there are mixed variables in each region and each of those matches. There's so much more, but that's just a breakdown that we like to look at, because oftentimes that gets asked in terms of, hey, how did said region, how did X region match up against so and so and so and so and so and so. So we do see this, is we've been studying these long enough, right, Coach, to that you see these go in cycles, right? Is certain regions shine 1 to 2 years, and then there's another cycle where maybe there's more, it's a little bit more balanced. But the one consistent you see there, generally speaking, is Region 1, right? That's been probably the most consistent winner in terms of overall record and titles in probably the last 10 to 15 years, easily, I would say. So, all right. So that does it for that. And we start shifting over to our season finale, Coach, discussing on the year that was here, the 2023-2024 season as a whole, beyond just Georgetown, beyond the state tournament, beyond even the state playoffs, right? Just the entire season. It's done. It's over with, wrapping up with last night's Katy Seven Lakes Flower Mound 6A boys final. You look back initially on your thoughts, Coach. I know I have a few questions here for you, but we're going to kind of break these down and have some fun with this a little bit. But you look at it as a whole, you look back on this season. What are your initial just thoughts?
The thoughts going into, like, there was some scenarios like, which teams were going to, really kind of step it up, kind of build what they did last year and kind of take it up a notch this year. If you look at kind of like the South Lake Curl Girls, kind of the disappointment last year, are they going to get back to this stage again? Seven Lakes, in a case, were they going to repeat, since they had a big target on their back? What some new contenders that made some noise last year, are they going to be back this year? Like, for example, one example was Pflugerville Conley, which we, I had it right up there. Like, I thought they were going to be one of the favorites to go into this to this weekend. And then you had other teams too, like Salina, where they losing all the seniors, how they're going to, were they going to be rebuilt or were they going to reload? People weren't sure. So there was a lot of good storylines going but there was like a lot of anticipation how this was going to turn out. And most of it we've talked about early in the season kind of did turn out, so kind of like the usual suspects did come back into the fray here in Georgetown.
Right. And yeah, I mean, there's so many directions. I think when I look at it as a whole, the amount of conversations that I have with coaches, administrators, players, just so many different people, officials, right? And it's just so many different directions that I can go with so much of this, but I always like to defer and then see where we go from there in terms of the conversation, because there's just so much to hit on that it's literally a podcast in itself, right? So, but first initial question for you, Coach. You look back on this year from our episodes, maybe episodes from the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable as well, different pieces, different episodes as well, storylines. What was maybe your favorite story of this season, the 2023-2024 season?
I think the one it was really hard. Let me think on this one. I think the one story I was really interested in is like I said, what was Salina. You know, were they gonna do something that no team has done at all? You know, and win 3 in a row. And you know, and just following them, you know, they had some setbacks early, but like I said, they challenged themselves. You know, they had some losses with some teams that are higher classification, and then when that loss to Panther Creek, you know, when we saw that, we were like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And it's like, is this like a omen that maybe this might not be the year? But you know, but like I said, I think that was one of my favorite stories, kind of tracking them to see what they were gonna do, and they, like I said, they ended up doing what, you know, finishing the story. You know, they ended up three-peating. I think even here, like here locally, even San Antonio, I think, you know, we're wondering which team was gonna finally break through, especially in the 6A level. You know, which teams were gonna break through to get to Georgetown, and
right,
and it fell short again. You know, and that's been the story. I think this last 2 years, you know, they've come short, especially for the 6A level for the boys and girls. So we're wondering, like I said, does that change next year? But you know, but that's some, like I said, for my local story here, that'd be like who's actually going to break through and get to Georgetown.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite game that you didn't have to cover it, right? Favorite game that you saw, that you jumped out on Twitter, you got more details about later, spoke with coaches, or maybe it is a game that you actually saw with your own eyes that maybe you didn't cover, but you were there as well. Boys or girls, or if you want to choose two, one of each, your call. But are there any matches that really kind of come back to you as like, that might have been the best match I saw this season?
I think for the boys, watching, because I heard the buzz about Pflugerville Conley, and I had the chance to, you know, be in the Austin because with work recruiting, so I got the chance to see them play against Pflugerville High, and I was just amazed by the talent level that they had. You know, it was like, wow, with some of the things they were doing, and especially some of the set pieces they were scoring from. You know, there was like, oh, this is for real. This, like I said, last year was not a fluke. You know, and it was an exciting game to watch, and just to see what that programs have pretty much built those last 2 years. So for the boys side, that's probably one of my favorite games to watch. I think the girls side, kind of look back here. That one's a tough one on that one, I guess.
Yeah, there were a lot of great ones.
I guess the Taft Round Rock game last week. You know, that was action packed, and then, for a while it didn't look good for Taft.
Yeah,
until they saw Leilon hit that free kick, you know, to tie it up, and then they end up going to the PK, and then Madison making that save and that PK in the first overtime, and then they ended up winning. You know, I think that was a big burden off of their shoulders after the disappointment they had last year, losing to a Round Rock team. You know, to finally, you know, to beat them, you know, on this one. So that was probably one of the entertaining girl games I've been to.
Yeah, Layla Rangel she was amazing in that regional tournament, right, for Taft, and very unfortunate for how it ended up for Madison Harris, who's just been an unbelievable goalkeeper, especially after how big she came up in that regional semifinal. Unfortunate, but they still make history, right? Breaking through to a regional final, making history for San Antonio Taft. So yeah, congratulations to them. But yeah, that was a great match. Yeah, no doubt. Here's a different one, different angle from what you can recall. Whether it was live or it might have been before, because there's always a lot of funny bloopers before we go live as well, or when we are covering games, right? But funniest moment of the season on the show, funniest moment maybe that you can recall.
I
Yeah,
think
I had to think about this one too.
I had to think about that one too. I think there's one that I think your headset wasn't working and you were hearing all this this buzzy sound. You had to reboot everything. I think it was your microphone that you weren't. It was like an echoing and stuff. And just right before we started, so we had to kind of push back
Right.
another 15 minutes and stuff. And then you were just doing everything you can, and finally, like, trying to kind of figure that one out. And
yeah,
it was like you were sweating out of it. Like, are we gonna? Because I think we had guests on that. I forgot which episode it was, but I think we had a couple guests. So like, hopefully, we don't have to push them back.
Yeah, it's always one of those. It's interesting because when we go live, I think that's one of the things that is like, it's inevitable with technology and what we're always doing. Something is always just, I shouldn't say always, but it's inevitable. We're all set. We're good to go. And then, even though we've already done sound checks, something's off right now, or I can't hear you, you can't hear me, or something. All right. Or all of a sudden, we got to do a live, broadcast update or something, and we're literally minutes from going live. So when you do live, it's a little different. You have to roll with the punches. It has to be fluid, and that's why we're always grateful and thankful for our listeners, our supporters, for sure. So oftentimes when we're running a few minutes late, that's often the case. So thank you.
I think even last week too, when we have the issues with the Wi-Fi, I think Comalander Stadium needs to get better Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll appreciate that one. Yeah, no, the regional tournament was, I spent the entire first half of the first match we were covering trying to troubleshoot why Steve and I were echoing so bad. I was like, what is going on?
Too.
I had run all, doing this long enough. I'm starting to turn into a little sound engineer guy, right? And I just, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out, right? So when you involve more technology and different software systems, things don't always communicate with each other, right? Things don't always play nice. So that's what inevitably happens. So yeah, it definitely leads to funny moments. That's for sure. So you look back on 23-24, right? This season, from scrimmages from when they started back in December all the way to, to yesterday. What was, maybe in your opinion, what was different this year?
I think this year was, what was different is, just teams starting a little bit more earlier, with games, and then, you had teams playing like quite a few scrimmages, but then also you started seeing some teams winning big games early on, and some teams kind of faltering a bit, like, whoa, what's going on here? And then you had some teams that were starting to make some noise, just to come out of nowhere. Like I'll give you one example like that for the girls 4A out of Region 1, Midland Greenwood. That's a team that nobody, they weren't on anybody's radar, and they had a phenomenal season. I think they pretty much were like a mirror image of last year's Waste Plains team. That's who they kind of reminded me a lot. That was one of the things going in, just kind of the unknown. Seeing teams that you normally don't hear of, were making noise. Especially, I had some teams in that top, 15, that, they started up well, and then they just kind of fell off, and just some of the games also, it's not, I guess the old saying is not over till it's over. There's some district races that came down to the last game of the season. I think the craziest one is like here in our backyard, 28-6A, for the boys. Pretty much everybody had Lee written off, and they make a last end run, and they end up finishing third in their district, and Reagan ends up being out of the playoffs. That was a surprise. Those type of stories. Just like I said, it was you couldn't really predict too much, because like I said, there's always a curveball coming in. And there's a lot of curveballs this season with a lot of the teams or a lot of the results.
Right. Yeah. What will you take, if you can recall, right? What will you take as maybe the biggest memory of this season, on the field, off the field, just whether it's from the show? What will you recall as maybe your maybe most fondest memory when you think back to this season?
I think the fondest one is doing a midnight bracketology, because no one's ever done that, and everybody thought we were crazy to do this. What, you're gonna do it at midnight? It's like, yeah, why not? I mean, and
Midnight Madness, baby. Yeah,
and Midnight Madness, and it turned out to be a great thing. We had a lot of viewers who did stay late. I know that night we were rushing from a San Antonio FC game, driving back fast, trying to get back from Toyota Fuel and getting everything set up. And we did the two brackets all the way into like close to 2:00 in the morning. But the I think the viewership for that, having a lot of people chime in, that meant a lot, because like I said, and it just shows how this platform's really grown, and more people are watching and seeing what they're actually getting, the coverage and the expertise and so forth, and I think that's the biggest take I get from this season. And that was kind of, like I said, like I guess the kind of the stamp of approval, to be able to pull something off like that, and have it be successful really meant a lot.
Yeah. I mean, and it's all attributed to our listeners, our supporters. So, it was fun, a lot of fun. We were sweating it. We were cutting it close there. We were sweating there for a little bit, but yeah, no, it was fun. And then when you saw the amount of live viewers and live input that we were getting, it was it was pretty humbling. So it was really cool to watch, really cool to be a part of, for sure. So last question I got for you, Coach. Biggest question. So now you look at everything we've covered this year. Regular season it's a wrap. It's in the books. Conversations that we've had, different things we've heard. We just had Coach Shipman, Jared Shipman, president of Tasco, on here. Some of the stuff that he mentioned. What do you feel as a sport, right, in terms of Texas high school soccer? What do you feel is the biggest question going into the 2024-2025 season?
I think the biggest question, like he mentioned about, is that D1, D2 really going to happen? There's some positives and there's some negatives. If you look at the other, I guess I'm going to use the other sports like basketball, baseball, and softball and volleyball. They don't really have D1 and D2. They have actual true state champions. And do you adding the D1 and D2 kind of dilutes, the winning a title, because it's like, well, I won this one, you won that one, so mine's more important to that. I think maybe the current format we should kind of hopefully get to keep, looking forward on. What I'm looking forward also, maybe do we add a fourth classification? Is 3A going to happen? Because we do have a lot of 3As playing up. We even have a 1A that, even though they didn't play in the district, but they're playing, and how does UIL, what do they do with that? And then I think what I'm looking also for next year is we just had realignment. How are these new districts? And we've discussed it, on and offline. There's some doozy of a districts that we saw. We're like, how is it, how do we deal with teams that, there are some districts with 11 teams. How is that going to work? Are they going to split them and like have a little like a conference and then end up playing like the top 2 teams in each one play, or they're going to play into like kind of what TAPS does, and some of them are playing those district tournaments. The other ones, like you saw other districts, like for example, like I'll give an example, 26 5A probably now become one of the most brutal districts. Not only you're adding you're adding Bernie, you're also adding New Braunfels, and it's
Alamo Heights will join
Alamo Heights too, as well too, and that's one of the Grupo de la Muertes for district wise, and and then also some situations with teams that only have with five teams in the district. How's that? How does that help them out? Are they going to be able to fill out their schedules? And are they going to play maybe 3 times? I've seen that before. Some of the 4As have played teams 3 times in district play. Just to kind of fill that out. So
I know you've had districts in El Paso doing that. Yeah.
So we'll see how this, moving forward, what the UIL is going to do to make things better. And it also comes into maybe the changes in the regionals. As far as like scheduling wise, I know we had a round we had Good Friday. That affected some games, especially the turnaround with some players. They had to play. They only had maybe a days or 2 days rest, and they had to get it going again, and that does affect some teams. And I think that's the biggest thing. How can we, fix things as far as with the playoffs, so that way players are well rested, and then and also avoid injuries, because I'm sure there's a lot of teams because of the quick turnarounds had a lot of injuries and they weren't able to in time to recover. I'm sure some of the games we've seen, you saw players in crutches or they just couldn't go because they had a pulled muscle, and then just they had to sit out of the game just to hopefully be ready for the next one. So those are the challenges I think that UIL has to face, but you got to be happy that you have organizations like TASCO there to kind of chip in, give their viewpoints and all that, and they do listen to them and help kind of help mold them, whatever it needs to be done to make it better. Because the bottom line is it's for the players, it's for the players and also for the coaches, but really the players are what can we do what's best for them.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting part, right? In terms of, because it's starting to sound like there's more like this whole Division I, Division II, big school, small school, whatever you want to call it, right? This split starting to sound like it's starting to get a little bit more momentum, right? How far that really goes, tough to say, right? That's beyond us. But if that does come to fruition, right? What that looks like in a year that we're going into a new cycle, right? New realignment cycle too. That'll be interesting, because I don't know if I don't know if this makes any sense at all, but do I believe it dilutes a state title? No, right? Because you've also had a lot of people saying the opposite about it now for a while, right? Just the disparity, right? Even within a classification. But because you've also had a lot of people in terms of just the equality piece of saying it's like, hey, if football does it, why aren't the other sports doing it, right? So same schools, same enrollments, right? So there's those arguments to be had. So do I feel it dilutes a state title? No, absolutely not. I think the question will arise is you could potentially be looking at 2 state champions coming from the same district, right? So what would that all of a sudden look like? Or what would be would there be any unintended consequences coming out of that? Hard to say. I don't know.
And
I really don't know.
That's happened actually in football. I think it was in 95. I think Judson and Roosevelt were in the same district, and they both ended up winning state titles. One was a Division I, was a Division II title, and the only loss that Judson had was against Roosevelt. So you could see a scenario of that happen. That'd be strange. Yeah. And then who has bragging rights for that? I mean, I would love to see the D1, D2 team play against each other. Hey, let's have a champion versus champion game.
Yeah. Well, you think in terms of
possible.
you mentioned 26-5A. You mentioned 26-5A, but that would be one example, right? You just could
Mhm.
see that. Excuse me. That could very much happen, and that's just one district, right? We look at the Frisco ISD districts, right? We look at the Katy ISD
Katie.
district, name a few different, right? That could very much happen. So then what, right? Or it is what it is. But I think, yeah, I think it's not a. I don't want it to diminish anything in terms of a participation trophy, participation award, because the reality of it is, if UIW can put, or UIW, if UIL can put, if UIL can put more earned trophies, right, in student athletes' hands, I know they're going to try to do that, right? So yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. That's kind of a big question, big story going in, and the fact that it's falling in line with new realignment cycle. What lies in the future with 7A? Uh, these are all interesting questions, not for next year, but looking down the road 2 years from now, right? So, all right. And as we wrap up, Coach, I was going to give you maybe one or two questions, maybe anything that you had for me. You got anything?
Well, looking back, since this was your first year coaching back at UIL, how did it feel coaching UIL
It
with
was great,
MacArthur
man.
being your first
It
year?
was great. It was great to be back. It really was, for a number of reasons. I found I was talking with a coach, with a colleague earlier this morning about that, and I mentioned that, and another coach last night actually, and mentioned that as well. It was great to be back, and from my perspective, my squad, my girls, I really didn't want this season to end, because it was just so much fun. They made it so much fun, so much energy, and they they were in the moment constantly and never really taking anything for granted, and they were appreciative for us to have gone as far as we did in the season, and they enjoyed it, and it was just a very fun group, and I was blessed. So hopefully we can continue that. But yeah, it was a great year one. So anything else, Coach? I'll give you
Um,
one more.
if there's anything you can change as far as with UIL high school soccer here, what's the one thing you would change the most to make it better?
Oh man, I think these are tied. They're often tied to each other, so it's kind of hard to single it out. But I would, I don't know. I don't know. I don't. I'm gonna kind of be a wait and see if the whole Division One, Division Two split happens, because if that happens, I think it's gonna be harder for a 3A to happen, right? Um, and if that does happen, does that kind of indicate to us that 7A is not on the horizon, right? That's another question to think about. But
Yeah.
um, I don't. I get the fact that people, in theory, they don't want the season to be longer. I get that, but um, I think so. It's kind of a two-parter. One, if we can do away with the kind of regional tournament format as it currently is, within Friday, Saturday, back to back like that. 2020, the 20 what was it 2021 season kind of showed us that it's possible that we can do it, because coming out of the pandemic, and it was great. We had some fabulous matchups. If we can do away with that, but why I mentioned the season is I don't. It would be great to see, of course, if the Division One, Division Two split happens, that changes a lot of things, right? What would that look like in terms of start of the season, end of season, locations? Does a regional tournament still exist, right? Does a round or two rounds go away, right? Where do you play the final? Do you have separate, weekends for, a state semifinal and a state final? Where do you play those state finals? Um, can you play them um, on separate weeks, in terms of kind of like how basketball does right now, right? With
Boys and girls.
here at the Alamo Dome, right? One week, the girls season starts a week earlier and it ends a week earlier, and UIL sanctioned state tournaments for basketball. It's the girls basketball state tournament one week here in the Alamo Dome, and then the following week is the boys. Could we do something like that? I don't know, and it's hard to say. given the format right now, I think we could. What it would look like in a split format with Division One, Division Two, don't know. Don't really know. But I think the people at Georgetown have been fabulous. I think Georgetown ISD has been fabulous. I think the support there has been incredible. So, because that's the other thing that has to be factored in all of this is, can UIL as an administration logistically support when people start talking about, well, hey, have this over here and have this in another part of the state over here, and the UIL is not going to go for that. They can't support that, right? So I know they're going to try to. Can they keep the state tournaments together? Ideally, and then the other question is, can they, if not, right, can they let them have their separate weeks, just 1 week apart, but it spaces things out a lot more in terms of whether it's a semifinal, final, or just finals, right? But I think but if you do away with, and you have a state semifinal earlier, right, like separately on a separate date, maybe you end up with better finals, right? A better product on the field. And then the question becomes is like, logistically, what does that look like in terms of location, right? Who can support that? Can we get a soccer specific venue? It's kind of hard to say, right? It's kind of hard to say. I know a lot of people are always pushing for whether it's Q2 Arena or, the Q2 Stadium or somewhere else. But on grass, when you have 18 games, that many semifinals and finals in the current format, it's not going to happen, right? It's not. It would kill a field, and right, MLS or soccer specific stadiums are not going to go for that. And obviously UIL they have to be smart in terms of just like fiscally, they have to think of, right, where they're not going to overspend in order so they can put on a good product. But none of this matters if people don't, at any point, right, aren't showing up and aren't going to support the sport. They're not going to watch a state tournament, right? Whether your team is in it, your school's in it, or somebody. But if people aren't going, it becomes a moot point. And it will just, because it seems like we go through this conversation every year as to, hey, how come they don't have it here? Why are we playing it here? It comes up every year. And then state is over and it goes away, and then it'll come up again next year, right? So just food for thought, I guess.
Yeah, because especially with that D1, D2, you're talking about 12 title games, combined boys and girls. That's going to be a task to kind of schedule. Right. I think you mentioned about the regionals. Something that I would like to see in the regional tournament is maybe play a Thursday, Saturday format. That way, that gives the teams a rest on Friday. I think that'd probably be the best case scenario. I mean, if you do it somewhat, with the state tournament, I think this would be probably the best thing is play the regional semifinals Thursday. The teams that win, they get a day off, they get to rest, and then you play a Saturday. That way, you have better quality games instead of enough for recovery time for, like, especially. With the situation, I think a couple of years ago, last year when we had all that rain, they pushed everything back to a lot of the games this year. At least if you have to make up the game the following day, you have that day right there that you don't lose out, or at least you still have players enough time to recuperate and be ready for the next game. So maybe that's something hopefully the UIL maybe consider for next year.
Right. Yeah. So many things we can what if it all day. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think progress and the fact that are those conversations happening as coaches, right? As coaches, are we having those conversations with athletic coordinators and with your district executive committees, pushing for that, or at least can we at least have, when I say pushing, it's more of, is the conversation even happening, right? And is it consistently happening? Within your circles, within your district, first amongst soccer coaches as a district as well, because you'd be amazed how many districts soccer coaches, they don't know each other, they don't speak to they meet once a year for an all district meeting, and or at the start of the year, right, for their initial start of the season meeting, and that's it. So, and I get it, everybody's pressed for time, I understand all that, but in terms of the importance of why we're all here and what we're trying to do for our sport and put the best product possible and set up our student athletes for success, I think more of that is warranted, right? So we'll see for sure. But Rafa, that's going to do it, buddy.
Mhm.
We've covered everything, but I think probably global warming today. So, wow, a lot of stuff. It's been season 4 is in the books. It's been fun. It's been exciting. Big thank you to you. And don't miss it. I know this is officially our season finale, but we look to be coming hopefully soon, very soon, with some of our upcoming episodes of the Champions, where we can get some episodes of our recently crowned state champions, coaches, and maybe a couple of athletes, student athletes that'll join us. They're always fun. They're always great. So we'll be in touch. If you just want a state title, obviously, please reach out to us as well. We're in the middle of trying to communicate that. And then it just becomes a matter of scheduling, right? But we'd love to be able to showcase coaches, student athletes, programs, those communities who have done the ultimate and won, recently being crowned state champions of our sport. So be on the lookout for those, as we will look to have those in the coming weeks, and they're always fun. Rafa, your thoughts as we wrap up here. Your final thoughts in stoppage time. Floor is yours. Go ahead.
No, I just want to thank you again for having, you know, for me be part of the team, and also shout out to Steve too. Steve does a great job with his stats and also going to the games. He kept us up to date what's going on this weekend as well. And then all the supporters and the viewers, you know, thank you for the kind words, and you know, just knowing that, you know, we appreciate, you know, you guys watching. And like I said, we love what we do, and like I said, we don't do it for money. We don't, like I said, it's not for the likes. We just want to give the proper, you know, coverage of high school, you know, Texas high school soccer that it really truly deserves. And like I said, I totally appreciate what what I do, and I totally appreciate whatever this whole team does too as well. It's just a lot of hard work, and I look forward for next season, and we'll see. Maybe, you know, maybe I'll be some changes. Who knows? On my end, as far as maybe I get back into the game. Who knows? So stay tuned.
There you go. Awesome. Another little teaser. I think you put that out there last year, though, in our season finale too, man. So I don't know. I'm starting to see a trend here. I don't know. We'll see. But no, yeah, great. Thank you. Likewise. It's been great. It's been great to be able to do this with you again. Season 4. And again, I kind of mentioned it just like bracketology, where I call it the what do I call it? The accidental tradition, right? With bracketology. And this in itself was kind of started. The spin-off series of Inside Texas High School Soccer was created kind of by accident as well. You know, was requested by a couple of listeners and supporters when we just, I don't know how, do you remember how I think we just had a special episode, right? To talk about something. And then it was just like, hey, and then we put another one together, and then the questions kept coming, and then we just ran with it. Right. So to be able to do this another season inside Texas High School Soccer has been fabulous. It's been great to do it with you. And, you know, we eat, sleep, breathe the sport from multiple levels. We primarily focus here, obviously covering Texas high school soccer, but in addition, the 50/50 podcast, we try to do the best we can in terms of getting our arms around, I should say, clubs obviously a little different, but definitely on the college side as well, the college soccer side, covering programs across the state of Texas, and then of course as a recruiting platform as well. So here to help our student athletes, showcase our student athletes, answer questions from parents whose student athletes are just entering the college recruiting process and they don't know maybe where to turn. It's kind of part of the reason why we also showcase so many different great quality college coaches who talk about maybe some of the stuff of what they're looking for, some of what to expect as your student athlete is entering the college recruiting process, and just what to expect as well. So for everybody that has joined us, those who joined us this week, you know, it's Coach Sazo, Coach Upton, we had Coach Shipman who joined us today as well. Those of us who have joined us this year, all the coaches, right, that have joined us this year on Inside Texas High School Soccer, really appreciate you. All the coaches everywhere across the state, you know, we're about outcome, not income. I think that's a big reason why we do this as a profession, as coaches, but also, what we're doing, what we're trying to grow. And I think it's fun. It's exciting to see where it's headed. As Coach Shipman mentioned, I'm excited about it. A long, long way to go. And there are a lot of people out there that'll tell you that high school soccer has no place in this country, that high school soccer is irrelevant, that high school soccer is bad. And you have to be careful with that. Obviously think to yourself, come to your own conclusion, think for yourself, come to your own conclusions. But I will tell you, there's a reason why so many student athletes want to be part of this. There's a reason why they want to take pride in playing for their community and wearing the crest of their school and playing with their classmates, their teammates, their friends that they go to school with every day. So both can exist, right? Both can exist, and we can be big supporters of club soccer across the board. Just as club soccer, I feel many of the coaches individually who are also high school coaches, ironically, can be equal supporters of student athletes playing high school. So to the club coaches who do, the club administrators and directors who are supportive of that, thank you as well. Really appreciate you all. And then just our administrators, athletic coordinators everywhere, our athletic trainers, everybody that has a say, videographers, ball boys, ball girls everywhere that makes so many different things happen. The volunteers in support of whether it's just the state playoffs, the regional tournaments, the state tournaments. Thank you to all of you. It can be a little bit overwhelming in a positive way because it's just so exciting to be a part of. So can't thank you guys enough. Thank you again. He is Coach Rafa Castorena, Mr. Ed Papasakaritis, and I am Coach Cano. It's been a joy to be able to cover this with you guys again this year for season 4. Again, we'll be back with the Champions episodes very soon, so be on the lookout for those. Please spread the word. Continue to like, rate, subscribe. You can find us on Twix, as I call it, Twitter X, as well as on Twitch at 50_50pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, excuse me, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. You can find us on all major podcast platforms as well. Go on there, like, rate, subscribe, leave us a review. The review piece is big because that's how we get seen more and leads to us being more visible in the algorithm. So like I said before, if you think we're great, give us on there, give us a positive review. If you think we stink, complain to Steve or to Rafa, not to me. All right.
Or Harry.
Or Harry. Yeah, Harry. Harry's in charge of the complaint department. So, but yeah, this has been great. The podcast team, we talked about Harry, we talked about Steve, Frank, Frank Court, who, our recruiting insider, who you didn't see as much this year as he's taking on new stuff. But what he's doing with our newsletter, we haven't even really mentioned that for several episodes, but the newsletter is big. Go on there. It's absolutely free, and there's great information there. Trust me, the information that's on there should not be free, but we're sharing it free. So go on there and sign up for that. We can put that out there again. Have absolutely loved every bit of our podcast team as it continues to grow. Another individual who's behind the scenes, who does a lot of stuff in terms of graphics and just our interfaces that you see here in our overlays work, Mr. Tom Strong. Have not mentioned him for a while because he's that humble, but I need to give him his kudos. Thank you to Tom as well. And then all our very, very faithful, loyal listeners and supporters who chime in here regularly in our comments. Thank you. We got some big news coming up soon as well in terms of new partners and what we're working on. So we're excited for that as well. So excited to share that with you. But Rafa, let's get out of here, man. Another season in the books. And as somebody share, we got to have the countdown timer for tryouts for next year. I know that's been mentioned a few times, so we got to find that and keep an active ticker on that. So for Coach Mr. Papasakaritis, Coach Rafa Castorena, I am Coach Hector Cano, and you know what to do. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening. You've been listening to the 50/50 Podcast, powered by the 50/50 Podcast Network. Help us continue to grow by liking, rating, and subscribing on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to follow us on X at 50_50 pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Until the next time, keep down.